Okay. All right, we'll start with a brief intro. Thank you guys for joining today. We're just getting started. Um, so I'm Kim. Pamela and I actually met in Paris over a month ago. And I am American. My husband is also American. We moved from San Francisco to Aix-en-Provence in France about 3 years ago. I have two young children, a boy and a girl, who, when we moved, were 4 and 6, and now are 7 and 9. And we live right in the city center of X, and my kids go to a bilingual international school. So we wanted to do this Substack live because I know there's a lot of questions about what it's like living here or moving here, or a lot of you are already there and have questions about other things such as friendships and social codes and all of that. So we're excited to cover that today as well. So Pamela, I'll have you
Yeah.
introduce
Thank
yourself.
you. Yeah, so I am American, but I've lived in France for a long time now. I also married a French man and have French American children, three kids. My oldest just turned 7. But today we're going to focus on a wider variety of topics. Not just parenting and, what else? I've been writing on Substack for about a year now, and I was lucky, that Kim contacted me to be a guest on her podcast, and that's how we met, and we really had a great time, and now we're just continuing, to chat with each other and discuss our different things that surprise us here in France, and I'm based in Paris and Kim is based in Aix-en-Provence, which is very interesting because there's also that contrast. Even though France is not a huge country comparative to the US, it is pretty different depending on where you are.
For
Um,
sure.
so I think that's interesting to have that contrast.
Yeah. And if you guys want to listen, you can go to Cuckoo on Spotify. That's the name of the podcast, or Apple Podcast, or YouTube, and listen to Pamela's interview. I think we go a lot deeper than we'll be able to do now. So it's a good follow up to listen to that if you're interested. So,
And the other episodes are also all about
oh,
life
yes,
in France,
true.
and
Thank
so
you. No,
they're all
very true.
very
You can listen to the rest of
good.
Cuckoo if you like. Great.
So, starting out, so thank you for anyone who submitted any questions. First of all, they were all very interesting. And so we tried to put them in different buckets. And bucket number one is all around moving to France, and questions around how to do it and things like that. So, I think some of them were directed to Kim. So, Kim, if you don't mind, I'll ask you the first question.
Yeah.
And I think one of the first questions was, um, what decided you and your husband to move to France when you
Yeah.
knew you wanted to leave the US? Um, and yeah.
Yeah, I'll just tell a quick story there because this could be a long one. But so we moved here. So we were living in San Francisco with two little kids. Both of us had pretty intense jobs. It was right after COVID. My husband had an opportunity to take a 1 year sabbatical from basically a pretty intense investment banking job and in Silicon Valley. And he kind of was like, you know what? I think I really want to do this. Like, I barely get to see you and the kids. I've been traveling a lot, and I agree. And I was working a lot. And so he was like, I kind of want to do this, and I want to do something a little bit like different. I don't want to just, take a year off and not like really live it up. And we had always talked about living abroad at some point in our lives. And I had lived in Spain during college, university, and my husband had lived in Italy. And so when we were talking about where to go, we had both been to France together as a couple before kids quite a bit, and just fell in love with the culture, the food, a lot of things that people love about France, and decided it would be good that neither one of us spoke the language. So I spoke Spanish, my husband spoke Italian. And we decided, this is crazy actually, that it would be better if we were both learning a language together. So neither one of us spoke French, and we just started taking online classes when we figured out we were moving to France. I would say those did not help at all. We got here and we were at like the very basic level of bonjour, which was fine. We just had to really accelerate because, unlike Paris, I live in a place where there's not a lot of English. And so you really do need to learn the language pretty quickly. And so we decided to make that move. Originally, we were saying it was just going to be 1 year just to kind of like be okay with this type of decision, I think. And I would say we got here in August 3 years ago, and by October we were like, we're not going back. So it was sort of a just decision, and then we figured out life and work and money and all of those kinds of things from here, which is still a navigating like process, I would say, over the past 3 years, and visas and all of that administration stuff. But I don't look back. It's definitely wasn't like the easiest decision. In fact, getting over here was probably even harder than like actually being here. But really glad we did. My kids are very much, I would say, like happy and thriving and are completely fluent in French. And yeah, it's been a really good experience. So thank you guys for asking. And Pamela, you have such a unique story about how you got where you got.
Yes, mine is a little maybe more complicated, I don't know. But my mom is European, and so when my parents separated, we were living in Honolulu, and, she decided she wanted to go back to Europe. And so we first came here when I was little, and then I traveled back and forth a lot to spend time with my dad in California, and, um and back and forth and back and forth. And eventually I met, my French husband, who would love to go live in the US, by the way. But we settled here for now. And so, yeah, my situation is different because I do have a European passport and I don't have the visa worries
Hmm.
that you have if you're American and if both people
Yes.
in the family are American citizens. I actually have to go through the other process to get my kids American because they were born abroad. So that's a whole other process.
Interesting.
So super. I think there was another question about moving to France with school age kids. Would you like to touch on that quickly?
Sure. Yes. I don't know that there's like a perfect age to move abroad. I get a lot of questions actually on the podcast about, oh, I think I missed the window because my kids are teenagers, so now it's too late. I disagree. Actually, I have a lot of friends that have teenage children that have moved here in the last year or two, and I would say, if anything, that's been more positive than some of the teenage experiences they were having. They were American, so from the U.S., and so I don't think there's like a bad time to move here. I generally would say I was really happy at the age that we moved here. So my children were 4 and 6. And the good part about that is, for those of you that don't know, if a child learns a second language before the age of 10, and meaning like they're very much immersed in a second language, they actually have no accent in that second language because their tongues aren't fully developed. And so it's pretty amazing because, like me learning French as an adult, I will always have an accent. So it's a dead giveaway, even if I'm completely fluent in French, that I'm not local or native. And my children, though, the teachers have said they are completely fluent as if they were local native children born in France, which is pretty cool. And that I think was a good age to start. I would say the younger, the better. Like my 4-year-old definitely now at 7 is more like fluent and just naturally wants to speak French more than my now 9-year-old. He prefers English. And so I do think, and Pamela, I'm curious, your children too, like I think age does matter in terms of them just feeling like really immersed in the language. But I would say from a like standpoint of what it's like as a family to have that experience together, I think it will be great at honestly any point and age because it's really a family bonding experience too. You're all doing and experiencing new things together and you're learning as a family and the travel as a family. Like there's just a lot of opportunities I think it opens up. So I would say great at school age, like primary years, amazing, but also I think could be great at older ages as well.
Yeah, I think I came to France first when I was 6, and that's when I learned the language. And, I also think that if the whole family is excited about the move,
Yeah,
kind of what you said, like, the age doesn't matter. I think it's more about, um why we're doing this, what's exciting about it,
for sure.
and not like the sadness of leaving because when you are a kid, it is sad. Like
Yeah,
I
for
was
sure.
really sad to leave my friends, even though
Yeah.
I was only 6.
Yeah.
So I think the excitement is really important if you're moving as a family, kind of just um, to communicate that to your kids and have it be really like an adventure and something really
Mhm.
fun to look forward to rather than,
Yeah.
sadness or, leaving.
I
Okay.
love that
Super.
point, Pamela. Sorry, I just wanna, like, add to that. I can notice the difference in families that are sort of, like, not here completely by choice, or one of the, like, one person in a couple wants to be here and the other doesn't, and I think children can feel that, like, more. I would say the excitement piece, like, for us, we decided that even though we were, like, a little bit nervous about it, we weren't gonna, like, have our show that to our children. Instead, it was much more about, like, look at the new adventure, and how we told them is, like, we had a little French party. It's probably so cliche, but,
That's
like,
so cute.
did did all the and then they woke up to, like, croissant and decorations of France, and said, like, "This is our guys, we have really exciting news. We're gonna be moving to France." And they, they were young and they thought it was, like, down the street. And I'm like, "No, no, we had the globe out." So anyways, yeah, I just think as much as you can try to, like, make it fun and exciting and, like, positive, it really makes a difference on the children.
Yeah. We had a question. I'm gonna address it quickly because I don't know all the details, but we had a question from an American nurse who was wondering if she could potentially move to France. Um, I do like generally speaking, I think any healthcare jobs you could definitely do in France as well. I do think you need to have like the specific national certification, whether it's to be a nurse or a doctor, but you usually have, like, maybe slightly shorter, programs to kind of catch up and gain, like, the specific French knowledge of the, profession. But definitely France needs nurses. France needs a lot of healthcare. Actually, I heard a stat the other day, I think it was, like, 30% of healthcare professionals in France are immigrants.
Wow.
Um, a lot of them come from Eastern Europe, I think.
Okay.
So that's definitely a field where you could, have a job and make, decent money. Obviously, the salaries here are very different, but there's also, liberal nurses here, and that could be super sought after, I think, in, like, the more remote parts of France, where they don't have a lot of healthcare available and where you could be, like, you could actually visit people in their homes and care for them in that way. Um but yeah, I just looked really quickly, and I think you have to study a little bit to do so, but it is definitely possible. And obviously, you would have to speak a bit of French because the people you will be caring for won't necessarily speak English. So that's probably maybe the biggest barrier, actually. So
I would say there's also white space for, like, an actual fluent English-speaking practitioner, whether that's a doctor or a
true.
nurse. That's actually very hard to find in smaller
Yes,
places. Like, maybe it's more common in Paris, but by me, I would say I now, don't even, like, search for that anymore. I just go with France because there's very few, like, native or at least fluent English speakers that are here in the medical profession.
true. And you're super right to point that out. It's not something I think of, but I definitely
Right, you
think
don't have
my
to because 'cause
doctors
you're
do not
fine.
speak English.
Yes.
Um, Super. And so we had another question that was around setting up our freelance businesses. I forget if that was one for you or one for me.
We could
Um,
both talk about it since we
yeah.
both had to do that.
So why don't you go ahead first?
Okay. So in the US, I had started a freelance marketing business. So prior to that, I was in marketing, mostly brand integrated marketing at Sephora, and left there. I went to a startup and left the startup and actually started my own marketing consulting business, working with a range of clients in different industries. And so I'd been doing that a couple years before I moved to France, and I thought it would be easy to kind of just continue that here. And so I would say my first, like, year and a half, I kind of tried to keep my same number of clients and hours. And I will be honest with you guys, the time difference is really challenging. All of my clients were in California. I think it would have been easier if I was coming from the East Coast, but the time difference, like, I most nights start at 5 p.m. That's like a good that's the like earliest I could possibly start. And then I would say, if on a good night, if I finished by midnight, that was, like, not even a full workday because I was still freelance. But that's, I would say, one of the challenges. And I was working my first year just on a resident visa, and at the same time was parallel pathing applying for. They have two types of visas. One's called an entrepreneurial visa, which is a little bit easier to get. And that lasts for 1 year. But the harder one to get, but it's definitely more fruitful if you plan to stay, is what's called your talent visa, which is what, oh my gosh, Pamela, I finally just got it. Went to the prefecture and picked it up. It was like the happiest day ever. So it's been 2 years in the
Congratulations.
process. Thank you. Of applying, waiting for their response, a lot of follow-up questions, and finally got that. And that buys you like 5 years and it's renewable. So that's like what we're here on now. And then you can actually work legally for a French company or continue your work with clients as long as you're billing them through France. So that's what I've been doing. I will say I have definitely scaled back on the freelance work with American clients over the last 3 years, just because of my young children and my husband's traveling. And so complications with working quite a bit at night is challenging. One thing to note, but that's how we're here and working on the talent visa.
Very interesting. So, as I mentioned earlier, if you were here, in my case, I have a European citizenship. So, I was able to, after working in France for French companies, I was able to just start my French entreprise, the French structure, and start my activity that way. And I have a variety of clients. Some are in France, some are in the UK, some are in the US. Um, I definitely see the time difference challenge though.
Yeah.
And yeah, but so the majority of my clients are not in the US.
That's good.
But yeah, it's I think there's definitely a lot more, but this is general, like uh, money that you have to pay out when it's a French structure.
Hmm.
It's more or less close to 50% of what you're billing
Yeah.
and plus VAT if
Yes.
that's something you're billing as well. So that would be about 50% excluding VAT. So it's pretty heavy. So if it's something that you're interested in doing, keep it in mind because um, yeah, it's very different what you're billing and what you have in your pocket
Yeah.
at the end of the day to pay for your expenses. So I think that's
Yes. That's
definitely
a really
something
good
to be
point.
aware of.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say if you're coming from a big US city, the cost of living is lower. So it's okay. Like I've been able to sort of make that work because of the just cost of living difference between San Francisco and here. But yeah, it's definitely like kind of hurts when you see what you're actually taking home.
Yeah. We had another question regarding like a one-stop shop to help people out with visas and things like that. I have again not had to use this type of help. But I have met through Substack an amazing person. Her name is Romy. She has a company called Trinier Consulting with her husband. They've both been living in France for 20 years. They're from Seattle. I'll put the link to their website in the chat box if you're interested in that. And they offer like a 15-minute discovery call for free, which you can do with them, just kind of to figure out what your options would be. And I think they're great.
That's awesome. I mean, we never use them or didn't use any one stop shop. And I kind of wish we would have because it's a lot to navigate
Yeah, I
on
think
your
it can
own.
be super helpful because even especially if you're not super fluent in French
Yeah.
yet, and it's just, I
Yes.
think it can be very overwhelming very quickly.
I'll attest to that. Yes.
So that was our kind of moving to France bucket of questions. If anybody in the live has any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat box if you'd like. We'll be happy to answer those. Um, the next bucket we had was kind of friendship and social codes. We could say maybe have those
Yeah.
together. Um, so a big one was making friends as a US expat. And I think here, Kim, your answer is gonna be the the best, answer we
No,
can
but I think
provide.
yours will be interesting too, as like you're in the French school system, and I would say like more immersed in that scene. So we can talk about both. So I this is actually one of the biggest positives I would say about moving to France has been the great network of friends that I've been able to meet here. I would say friendships, especially among other expats, and I don't mean just other Americans. Like, I would say for me, it's been a range of expats that speak English in one way, shape, or another. Like, doesn't need to be native English, just that because my French was not at a level when we first moved here. And my children are at an international school, we naturally had like a really nice community of wonderful like parents that were even like willing to help us in our first year that were maybe a year or two ahead of us and just like teach you kind of the ropes of how to find a doctor, how to do xyz, because you are kind of like lost at starting over your life in another country, and it's really nice to just have friends that have been through it that can help. I would say the friendships, at least for me, have moved a lot faster and gone deeper more quickly than they did in the United States for me. I find like almost your friend group here becomes like your family because it's everyone's sort of in the same situation. And I have really enjoyed and made really, really amazing friendships over the last 3 years. And now I'm really happy because my French is at a level and that I now have French friends as well. And that is really nice because those take longer. Like these are moms I might have met my first year, but honestly, they didn't really pay attention to me because they're like, how long is she going to be here? Which is kind of a question that a lot of French will ask because to them, investing in a friendship is really a commitment and something that they'll hold on to for their lifetime. And they're not going to do it if someone's there for a year, to be honest. So now that they've seen that we're here, they are much more open. Like I actually was just before this Substack live at one of my French friends moved to a new house, and she had a little housewarming lunch, and I was the only non-French person there, and we spoke French for the lunch, and so it was just kind of lovely to sort of feel a little bit more immersed within now also the French culture and not just expats. So it's great over time if you can kind of have a combination, I would say.
That's so nice.
Yeah, it was lovely. I mean, I didn't understand all of the conversation, but I think I was at least mostly participating.
It's funny what you said about, friends becoming kind of like family, because I
Mhm.
found the same thing when I was in New York. Because in New York,
Ah,
everyone was all of my friends were not native New Yorkers. I had one native New
yeah,
York friend, but yeah, everyone was kind of an expat or coming from somewhere
yeah,
else, and we really had that kind of even for Thanksgiving and things like that, we
yeah,
were
same.
friends because nobody had family there, so
Totally. Oh,
I
that's
think it's
really
an
nice.
expat thing generally. Uh,
Yeah, no, for sure. Can you, Pamela, talk a little bit about since your children are at a French school, like how you've met like other French families and parents and what that experience has been like?
so I think it's interesting what you said about, people wanting to know that you're staying, because
Hmm.
even among, like, French people and I don't really have an accent when I speak French, so people tend to think that I am French,
Yeah, that makes
um,
sense.
and so instead of asking, like, "Oh, are you sticking around?" or the question is not necessarily always so direct, but it's something around to get the knowledge if you're renting or if you own
Ah,
your
interesting.
place. And
Mm.
so that's one of the questions, like, you'll go to a party and people will be like, "Oh, so, have you done, like, travaux in your home? Or did you have to go through the whole, like, architect and travaux thing?" And so that's the way of knowing, like,
Ah,
are
so
are
interesting.
do you own your place, and so are you here for good?
Mhm.
So that's something that kinda surprised me because I didn't realize that that could be one of the ways people are
Yeah,
wondering if it's worth putting time in
investing.
with you.
That's
Um,
interesting.
and yeah, just generally, I think so my kids have not been in an American school, so I don't really have that comparison point. But it does take a long time, for sure, of like seeing people every day at drop off and, saying hi casually. And you're not going to probably be invited over to people's house right away, even
Yeah.
if your kids get along well. And even if your kids do get along well and you are doing play dates or things like that, um, you won't necessarily be invited as a friend. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yes.
It'll be like kids things, so the kids are invited to play together, and then you can casually talk to the parents, but you're not on a friend level with the parents yet.
Yes,
And then
that's
if it
true.
continues, then you can kinda think like, "Oh, maybe we'll invite the parents over for lunch, for dinner, and do something kinda separate," not even
Yeah.
necessarily with the kids. But that's how you would be, like, taking it to the next level in a sense.
Yes.
But it takes a long time, even if your kids get along really well.
Yes,
So that's
interesting.
something that I found interesting. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say on that subject.
Yeah, I have one more thing. If you don't have children or aren't involved with schools and you move here, I will say there's a lot of other like networks that I've actually met people and like colleagues and friends through. Like for example, in X, there's a whole Entrepreneurs of X group. That's everyone who's kind of has their own business and just gets to know each other and does social gatherings. There's even like, there's an American group. Like there's a lot of other groups I would say outside of just school systems where there's people are much more open and wanting to meet, friends and kind of establish that connection.
Yeah, and I've seen this discussed on Substack before as well. There's a very big, like, associatif,
Do you want to explain
network
what that
in
is?
France.
Yeah,
So it's like nonprofits,
yeah.
where people would, like, gather on a theme. It could be, charity work, or I don't know if you have any other examples. I once joined when I had more time, I was part of an association that was teaching French to, Romanian
Oh,
expats.
cool.
So all of those ways, either it's volunteering work,
Yeah.
and there's so many different like things you can choose from, things that would really speak to you, and your interests. But I think it's a great way of meeting people.
Hmm.
And if you're part of an association, then there would be regular gatherings, and there's even some here, like in the Luxembourg Gardens. You could be a beekeeper, and
Oh, cool.
that's a nonprofit, and they do beekeeping together, which is,
Oh,
I
fun.
suppose you would want to know how to do beekeeping. But there's so many things, like there's
Yeah.
literally so many different nonprofits here, and it's really, I think, a great way to get to know people.
Oh, that's so cool. I'm not super familiar with those. I kind of want to look into it. Cool.
Um, and so, but sorry, just looking at the other questions that we had a question that was around making friends. So we talked about it for ourselves, but there was a question about making friends for your kids.
Mm.
Was that difficult?
Okay, so my children, when my daughter started school, she was actually the only, despite being at an international school, she was the only native English speaker, and everyone else was
Oh,
French. So that's pretty typical, actually, in maternelle, which is like preschool. That a lot of the French families that are at a bilingual school are there for their children to learn English at a young age, and not necessarily vice versa. There's not as many families that are native English putting their children at that young into that type of program. And so I would say my daughter was challenging because she didn't speak any French for a while until then she started playing in it. And I was actually probably more nervous than she was about her making friends. And the teachers were very like, "She's gonna be fine, like, she will pick up French," and I had my doubts, but they were completely right. Children pick up another language, especially if it's their play language, so much quicker than us sitting and, like, trying to memorize, like, verb conjugations, it's just a totally different learning method, and it's been pretty amazing because I would say now my daughter, her friend group is almost all French, and she speaks French at school, even though as she's moved up there are much more children that speak English. Those aren't necessarily her closest friendships. And then I would say, kind of the opposite for my son. He really only gravitated toward the children that spoke English. And that's a bit sometimes problematic because I'll be honest, like for him, he would make a friend with an Australian and they would leave the next year and then he'd have to start over. And so there is kind of a culture especially I would say at international schools, of people leaving. And so my kids have like established close friendships and then they have to kind of start over the next year. So that is just one challenge. But I will say, like, now my son, I think he's learned, and his friends are also French but speak some English. And so now their kind of friendships are more stable, but it does sort of ebb and flow differently than I would say when my kids were at an American school in the US, and it was pretty stable. The families weren't moving, and so those friendships could kind of deepen over time. It's just a slightly different type of experience, I would say, for your children, because they sort of have to navigate language, country, how long people are staying. And kids don't think about it like I'm saying it. It's just something I observe as a parent. My kids are completely fine and would not notice that this is like a challenge, I would say.
Yeah. So interesting. And my kids are in French school, and one of my oldest son's best friends left a couple years ago.
Oh,
And so here, like, maybe 2 or 3 kids leave each year.
oh, it's not
And,
very many.
and so they're like pen pals, so they still
Oh,
write to each other.
cute.
Yeah, here it's not like, to people are mostly here to stay, so
Yeah,
it's
that's a
interesting. I
different
think it's a
experience
Yeah, I think it's a real contrast with the bilingual experience,
for sure.
bilingual school experience.
For sure.
Um, so around social codes, we just had
This is a
some
good one.
questions that were like, "What are the social codes?" So that's pretty wide. There are so
Open.
many.
So many. I was like, we're gonna need more than our 10 more minutes, but maybe I could start with some. And Pamela, you're so much more like have such deeper insight here. I would say general etiquette, like if you're visiting France, always say bonjour, like no matter what. Like you walk in to a boutique, like you walk into a restaurant, you acknowledge people are that you're within the same company of other people. And it's really important to establish that, make eye contact, say bonjour. That's just like sort of 101. Don't go up to somebody, like, even if you don't know them, and immediately launch into your question, like, where is this restaurant? Like, without saying bonjour first. And actually, Pamela, can you tell your quick story on that while we're on that topic? Because I love your story when you worked with that security guard, or what was it?
Oh, I it's oh, you mean, yeah, the one. So I wrote about this. So when I was working at the Eiffel Tower as a student, which was the best student job ever, by the way. And I had a colleague, his name was Claude, and I always at first didn't laugh, but then I ended up laughing. He Whenever a tourist would come up to him with a question and they would launch into their question, if they didn't
Mhm.
say bonjour, he would just respond, "Bonjour!" And in a pretty, like, loud and rude voice. And, I at first thought, "Wow, you're, like, being so mean to these
Yeah.
people." And actually, like, people's reactions were surprisingly tame. They would just be like, "Oh," and they would kinda check themselves, and they would be like, "Oh, yeah, bonjour, sorry."
Oh, it's cute. He was
Um,
like kind of like training them.
yeah, it was a little rough though,
It's kind of a
but,
mean training, but
it's I mean, no one ever walked away crying, so I guess.
yeah. So
But yeah, that's definitely one. That's a good basic. And another thing you can do if you really don't speak a lot of French, I think, is just follow it with "Parlez-vous anglais?" Uh,
yes.
do you speak, or even, do you speak English? You know, people understand. Do you
Mhm.
speak English? They'll probably have basic English either way, but they'll feel seen if you do ask the question before
Yes.
speaking to them.
Before just speak. I completely agree.
So I
It's
think that's
I think,
another.
yeah. I think that is considered pretty rude to just, one, not say bonjour, and two, just start speaking English. Like, that's definitely not super socially acceptable here. So if you are visiting or moving to France, like, just kind of learn bonjour and parlez-vous anglais, and those are going to get you at least a step in the right direction.
They'll get you kindness. They'll be like, "Oh, this
Okay, yes.
person is nicer than the average." Uh,
Yes, correct. And then I think as you learn French, like especially at the beginning, I would always caveat with like "je parle français," like "pardon," like just like I'm learning French, like excuse like my bad French, essentially. And I noticed Pamela, it kind of disarms them. Like they're like, "Oh, don't worry, you're like doing well," or they'll at least speak a little bit slower or not. So there are things you can do to sort of help yourself to
Yeah,
navigate
yeah,
socially the
definitely. I
language.
think the French know that French is really hard to learn
Hmm,
because
they
they
do.
themselves make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, it's
Even
true.
when you born and raised in France, you still have, like, grammar questions and things come up. So, no, if you tell them that you're trying to learn French or that you just have a little bit of knowledge in French, they'll already be like, "Wow, you're already trying to learn this difficult language." So they'll
Yeah.
be much more open, I think.
Yes, completely agree. So that's one social code. I would say the other social code is if you are encountering and trying to meet French friends, like there is a bit of like an etiquette, I would say, of not immediately coming off in a what I would call like a very American vibe of like, "Hi, how are you? Oh my gosh, I love your dress." Like they are gonna look at you like, "Oh, like take it down a
She
few levels." Um, I don't know you. Like, you're smiling, you're like approaching me and you're very enthusiastic. Like it's definitely more reserved, like, they would perceive me being really fake if I did that to a French, woman that I didn't know super well, and so just be aware of, like, sort of, I would say, social demeanor is different in meeting friends in the US than it is in France, among like, especially among other, like, French women, you can see that they won't necessarily approach each other that way, even if they know each other really well. It's kind of more like "Salut, ça va?" And there's like the "du bisou." That's 2 kisses. I know there's different cheeks depending on Paris versus the South, which always confuses me which side to start on depending on where I am. So I'm sure you can shed some light on that. But so just I'm sorry to wrap that up, I would say like just be aware of how you're approaching someone. Like the French aren't as like overtly smiley and enthusiastic as like for example me as an American.
Yeah, and that raises an observation you make me think of even when you'll see like French chatting on the street, which happens a lot, around drop off, and
Yeah.
you would not know if they're very close or if they're just chatting.
Interesting.
Like nothing from the outside gives away if these people have known each other, sorry, if they've known each other for their entire lives or if they just met, a couple days ago and they're just chatting. That's what I find anyway when I see people and then
Yeah.
I find out that they've known each other since like preschool. I'm like, "Wow, I never would have guessed that. You guys are so like
Mhm.
reserved."
Yeah.
So I think
That's
that's
such an
interesting.
interesting. Yeah.
I think in the States, you could definitely tell when people are really close, you know?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So,
What other social
um,
codes, Pamela, would you say?
I would say we've both written many substacks on
Yes.
like the intricate nuances, and it's such a like huge subject, I think,
Yeah,
and it's also so fascinating.
for sure.
Definitely check out. I think you had a really good one not too long ago on things that surprised you when
Uh
moving to France.
yes.
And then I think both of our accounts have
Yeah.
many references to social codes and things that surprised us and things that are different here. So if you like to read, I think you have a few hours
Yeah.
um, of that.
Yes, I would highly recommend. You had a few good ones too, Pamela, but the one that people have been referencing a lot, I wrote one about what the French find completely bizarre, and people have so many comments on this, like, from all over the world, and, it's just been really interesting because I didn't really think that much of it. I just was writing from an American perspective of noticing the things they think I do that are pretty strange, you know?
Yeah, and I thought it was so well put. It was very interesting, and yeah, I think it's just a great way of putting it too, because you can tend to get a little bit like defensive about why aren't they
Yeah.
understanding this, and the
Mhm.
way you did it was just about being surprised, and
Yeah.
so yeah, it's
Thank
a
you.
great piece.
Okay, awesome.
Um so we wanted to wrap up in a couple of minutes, so I think there was a fun question on fashion that we wanted to address. I think we can do that, and then if ever anyone has any questions, please feel free to drop them, sorry, in the chat, um, while we're answering this last question. Does that work? So the last question was around French brands that Kim enjoys, and, yeah, so can you tell us about
Oh,
those?
I'll tell. Okay. So Pamela is definitely more well versed in fashion. She worked in the industry. I worked in it in New York, in a capacity a while ago. But I one of the things I love about living here is like street style and watching what people wear. I'm sure you can relate, Pamela, because it's incredible and looks so effortless and looks really chic. But I know it's like definitely there was effort put in, just in a different way than I would say having lived in New York and San Francisco, the effort is very different. So I don't, some of my favorite French boutiques, so Saison, like bien sûr, I was going to say, like, of course. It's definitely a very iconic French brand. I just think they like hit it right every time on both like I would say, like, being a heritage French brand, but also, like, being on trend. Thank you, Pamela. Um, Sœur, both of us actually love, it means sister in, French, and I would say just, like, very timeless, high quality pieces. Pamela helped me on the pronunciation, but I love the store, Sézoune? Une?
I'll
Comme ça?
write it in the chat. I say "Saison," but,
Saison?
uh,
Okay. And I would say those are kind of my, like, top 3, and then I have a lot of boutiquey ones that, are kinda more local, like Stella and Susie, that I think is one that, you and I both have in Paris. And then I just discovered a new boutique that, is called Mademoiselle Janine. And there's a couple in Paris. I think there's one in Le Marais, one in the 12th maybe. And anyways, it's kind of like affordable fashion that also has like a bit of a timeless quality. So that would be my list. There's also stores I really miss in the US that I can name another time.
it is interesting. I'd be curious if you have a couple in mind.
Okay, Aritzia and J. Crew. I'm going back to the US to shop those two.
Okay.
Only for basics, but yes, excited.
In non-French for basics, which is, like, maybe a little bit more present in Europe, I really like COS. It's part of the H&M
Oh, I
group,
like costs too.
but
Yes.
and it's a little bit pricier than maybe Aritzia, I'm not sure. Um,
I think it's around about the same price as Aritzia, but you're
but
right,
they
cost
do
is
good
good. It's kinda
basics.
oversized.
Yes. But not everything.
No, you're
Um,
right.
so I'm gonna send those last ones you mentioned. I'm adding in Balzac, which is kind of like
Yes.
a sister-ish brand of Cézanne. It's pretty similar. Um, they also have a store near Cézanne here in the 7th, in Paris. There's one called Martin Martin, which started as, dresses and I think blazers, and they've kind of expanded their collection, and it's, pretty cute. And what else? We said Rouge, which is
Oh,
famous
ruche,
now.
yes.
But they have good, like, if you're looking for dresses, they have good shoes too. They have
Yeah.
a lot of interesting
I
things.
I bought a trench from that brand and I love it.
Yeah,
It's, like,
good
really
jackets
good
too.
quality. Yeah, good jackets. Cool.
Okay, so we didn't get any more questions in the chat. So I think, we can
We can wrap.
end it here for today. And there are a few questions that we didn't get to because we wanted to stick to this 45-minute format. But if you guys liked this format, please let us know. And we're happy to do it
Yeah.
again and address any other questions that you might have. And thank
Yeah,
you so
and
much for joining.
awesome. Thank you, guys, and if you're interested in any other topics, we're happy, like Pamela said, to come back with another live soon. Thank
Thank
you,
you, Kim.
everyone.
See you
Yes, thank
soon.
you, Pamela. So nice to see you. See you in
Have a
Paris.
good day if you're in the US and a good afternoon if you're in
Yes,
Europe.
you guys too. Thank
Bye.
you. Au revoir. Bye.